Hello, you are welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Hope Nyongereza and I bring you the latest news in Uganda and all of East Africa. Today I bring to you the latest from Kenyan politics, where Kenya's opposition figure, Raila Odinga, is in constant revolt. The 78-year-old leader who has lost every presidential election he has participated in is calling on his supporters to take to the streets to remove President William Ruto. Is it a sign of his undying fighting spirit, or is he being driven by the energy of despair? 78-year-old Raila Odinga has once again set out a march against the government, which he says he wants to unseat. He is hoping to bring cohorts of angry Kenyans along with him. Odinga, the eternal opposition leader who has systematically lost every single one of the 5 presidential elections he has participated in, wants to turn the tables. He called on opposition supporters to meet on every Monday for their mother of all marches in the downtown area of capital Nairobi to denounce the rising costs of living. The call to collective action was banned by the authorities, but it was taken up by thousands of people on Monday. In Kibera, the largest slum in Nairobi, protesters set fire to car tires and clashes pitted crowds against police in other parts of the capital. Many protesters were arrested, including 2 opposition parliamentarians. It was the kind of mobilization that for some Kenyans revived mixed memories, with the country having become accustomed to post-election unrest. Some of the violence has left deep scars, including the 2007 riots that left at least 1,100 people dead. Until recently, the veteran of Kenyan politics seemed to be losing momentum. Despite weekly rallies, he seemed to be preaching only to his faithful since William Ruto's election in the August 9, 2022 presidential election. A head of state he considers illegitimate. But the economic crisis that is taking hold in Kenya could allow Baba to inject new momentum into his movement. Odinga sounded the alarm on March 9th following a strange ultimatum that he himself had given to President Ruto and that the head of state was careful to ignore. On stage wearing sand-colored military fatigues, combat boots and a cap bearing the words Raila V, the opposition leader launched his counter-attack against the man he calls Ruto, the dangerous dictator. We are starting this movement of peaceful marches, boycotts, pickets, disobedience, general strikes and petitions, he asserted, with the climax of his mobilization being the big demonstration on March the 20th. Under the cries of Ruto must go, chanted by the 100 or so supporters present, the Mzee enumerated a jumble of grievances, some far-fetched, others dangerous. In no particular order, he denounced the rising cost of living, the alleged plundering of Kenya's resources, electoral irregularities, and the importation of GMO maize. Willing to do anything to mobilize people, Odinga sometimes ventures into more slippery terrain. He accuses President Ruto of favoring his own community, the Kalenjin. This illegitimate regime is planting the seeds of ethnic hegemony for future genocide in Kenya, said the man who has come too close to inciting ethnic hatred several times during his long political career. Enough is enough. With these statements, coupled with the purchasing power flying at half-mast, gave rise to a broad protest movement in the long run. Nairobi, in any case, is preparing for it. On Monday, the capital's city center was partially blocked, with businesses completely closed. Access to the State House was fortified. After 6 months of a rather clamorous presidency, this is Ruto's first real test. Enough is enough, said the president, visibly annoyed to his opponent. You can't keep holding the country hostage. It's too early to say whether these efforts will be successful, said Kenyan political analyst Mutahi Ngui. It's not clear whether there's enough popular discontent for the movement to succeed. Odinga's movement lacks grassroots support despite some recent demonstrations in his stronghold of Kisumu. Improvising a speech during the protest, the opposition leader promised rallies every Monday. But the fact that he's still calling for the elections to be annulled 6 months after they were validated by the Supreme Court shows the difficulties Raila Odinga has in mobilizing people. Margaret Ngani, aged 68, was marching in Nairobi on Monday to demand the annulment of fraudulent elections and to oppose the decline in our purchasing power, said the longtime opponent wrapped in a Maasai-style blanket. Until recently, Margaret considered herself middle class. Now she's unable to pay her granddaughter's school fees. In Kenya, 1/3 of the population lives in extreme poverty. With the government running out of foreign reserves and desperately seeking external funding, Kenyans are feeling the full brunt of inflation. This is being symbolized by the end of Ruto administration's public subsidy programs for gasoline and maize meal and the wider rise in oil and fertilizer prices. In February, Standard & Poor's downgraded Kenya's sovereign debt outlook to negative. In the background, another economic battle is occupying the minds of Kenya's three strongmen. For several weeks now, President Ruto has appeared to be taking on the financial empires of Mr. Odinga and his ally, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, two of the country's biggest owners. The government's recent decisions to open up the liquefied petroleum gas market to competition, where Odinga's company has a monopoly, and to ban the import of certain dairy products, where Kenyatta dominates the sector, are seen as carcass belly. For Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, this big demonstration is also about proving to the presidential camp that they can mobilize troops and solicit the media to protect their financial empires, said analyst Nguni. But even at the risk of once again tipping Kenya into a deep political crisis, in a show of strength, Odinga has unveiled a new kind of troop, the Movement for the Defense of Democracy, nicknamed Jeshi la Baba. Recognizable by their military fatigues and red berets, once slightly slanted on the head, the MDD, supposedly a youth movement, looks like a cheap imitation of the revolutionary parties of Bobi Wine in Uganda and the Economic Freedom Fighters EFF in South Africa. The MDD is harmless for now, but it nonetheless continues to loudly proclaim that it wants to dislodge Ruto from the State House. Well, that is what I have for you today. Make sure to like, comment, and click on the subscribe button to get the latest news across Uganda and all of East Africa.